The Middle East has a new story to tell, and this is From MENA to the World. And I'm your host, Amir Farha. I've been investing in startups since 2005. More recently, I co-founded Beko Capital, and now Co2 Ventures, a seed-stage VC focused on investing in incredible founders in the Middle East at the earliest stages of their journeys. I've been involved in backing extraordinary companies founded by amazing people. And over the years of investing, I've found that I love understanding the human side to entrepreneurship. I love hearing the stories from people that faced and surmounted huge challenges. And I love championing underdogs who are against the odds of success. For the longest time, the MENA region has been misunderstood. Today, we are creating a new narrative, a new voice that harnesses our strengths and is a driver of our future. The Middle East has a new story to tell, and this is From MENA to the World. Today, we're talking to Ben Mouflard, founder of Chatfood, a mobile ordering and payments company for restaurants in the UAE. Ben is from France, and he walks us through his journey from Europe to the Middle East as he embarked on a mission to truly help small businesses grow. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do too. Thanks, Ben, for making it, man. I appreciate you being here. I'm just going to get straight into it, and maybe you can start off by introducing yourself.
Thanks, Amir, for the introduction. My name is Ben. I'm the co-founder of Chatfood. So we are a commission-free ordering system for restaurants. So we help restaurants take back control of their online business and sell directly to their customers, directly from the app you as a consumer use every day, try Instagram, WhatsApp, your website. So we help empower them with the technology to be able to move into this new online world that's everywhere now.
Yeah, I guess, that's where you are today. I'd love to know more about how you got here. So maybe walk us through your childhood, man. Like what got you to, study or high school, childhood, university, work, and then Dubai, Chatfood. Like maybe that would be a really great journey to hear.
Yeah, cool. I was very fortunate to grow up in a nice environment in between Versailles, close to Paris, and the southwest of France. And I think passion from entrepreneurship really started from a very young age in the southwest of France. Started probably my first business. I was 7, just picking up golf balls along golf courts and selling it back to the people who just lost their ball. And this is where I really loved to have this touch and also like to convince people to buy things and to understand this relationship between like buying and selling. And so it took me over, and I did like a lot of other stuff. Then I went into a business school, and this is where it starts to be interesting. That I think for a lot of us, when you are in business school, maybe it's changing a little bit, but at the time, like 10 years back, it was more like you need to do a career in a big groups and so on. So. That's what I started to do. I started to work for Microsoft, Facebook, but there was always something that was missing. I was never fully accomplished, and I could feel that it was not exactly what I wanted to do. And at some point, and one day, my wife, I was talking to her about like my IDs number, 20. And then she just stopped me and said, like, stop to bother me with like your IDs and start to do something. And it really acted for me as a wake-up call. I was like, okay, let's stop the bullshit, and now let's be serious about like discipline, and let's really build something. Basically, this is what I knew I wanted to do from all that time. So
that's amazing.
We can go into the details about how after it took me to Chatfood, but I think for every entrepreneur at some point, there is a moment where you just like switch on and you realize that it's probably what you want to do. And then once your mental model has shifted, then a lot of the things becomes much easier. And yeah, this is what happened for me.
Yeah, I love that. I guess we were talking before we got here about you being a middle child. I say that because I'm a middle child of 3 boys. And, I don't know if I think there's research out there that says that middle child actually, a lot of them end up being entrepreneurs. And I think there's many reasons for that. We were talking about competitiveness and stuff. So maybe just a glimpse on what it was like growing up with your 2 brothers and your...
Yeah, so I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. So we are 5 in the family, okay. And I'm number 4.
Okay.
So yes, I think it was a good fight to find your space in this whole family. And it definitely one of the traits of my character is my competitiveness and my grit to not give up. I think, and probably it's a good part of being an entrepreneur is that you go through a lot of roller coaster moments, and this ability to remain positive and to push through. I think it's something that's quite important for entrepreneur to be able to keep the vision, but not give up along the way. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned your wife, of course. Like you must have met her somewhere earlier in your career, and she obviously is a significant contributor to you being a founder.
Definitely.
Which is, sometimes I don't know how often that happens, but that's pretty amazing that she contributed to that. But how did you get to the point where idea number 20 you said, which was I guess Chatfood at this point? And obviously, Vinny I'd love to talk about that because that's a really cool story too. So
we'll come to it. Yeah. So for everyone who wants to go into entrepreneurship, if you are looking for the perfect work-life balance, it's a challenge because it's another baby that you have your company, and it's taking a lot of mental space. Even so, it's super important that you are well aligned on that within your family and within your close environment, and without someone by your side that can support you and that is like aligned with what you are trying to do, it's impossible to do it. So I'm super grateful that she understood that this is what really I wanted to do, and she pushed me to do that. And like without that, you cannot go through those phases. Without that, and to make the link with Vinny, without a co-founder. So of course you have a lot of stories of solo founders, and I'm just like super impressed about people who manage to do that. But definitely, I think in most cases you also cannot do that without a very strong co-founder, and it's not something that you can just like discover like this. Like it takes time to build this trust and this relationship. And I was also like super fortunate to cross Vinny's path, and to actually like from day one could realize that there was a good match, and we probably like could build like amazing stuff together.
Yeah, but maybe walk us through that connection.
Yeah. So yeah, to do the link, so I met my wife when I was working at L'Oréal in Dubai. So this was like I think 2013, and then I got the opportunity to join Facebook. So big move, leaving Dubai, letting which was not my wife at the time in Dubai, and moving to Dublin. I was renting an apartment and I had an empty room. One day, a guy knocked on the door. I opened, and it was Vinny. And so Vinny is from Brazil. He's an amazing talent engineer, and from day one, first evening, I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this. And then he was like, yeah, cool, let's build it. And then we started to build stuff together. And this is the best moment where you can realize that the two of you align to execute, to be consistent, to be disciplined. This was amazing. So the first idea that we had was, so when I was at Facebook is cool because they give you free budgets to run ads. They want everybody to know how to run ads because this is their business. So I think they give you like $250 or $300 a month to run ads. Me being a bit always last minute and never really know how to buy gifts to people, I was always struggling to find good gift ideas on Amazon. Amazon is amazing when you know what you do, but on the discovery side, well, they have done a lot of progress, but back in the day, it was not easy. So I was like, yeah, I have free budgets. Let's build a tool that's called Amazing Gift Ideas. That's like curate the best, the highest seller of Amazon. We make it into a nice page and we do a bit of affiliation. We did this the first, like literally, I'm not joking, the first evening when he joined in the apartment. We spent the whole night iterating on this, building this. And then the next morning, we had the landing page ready where you could like redirect people to Amazon and get the affiliation link. I started to put the ads on. It's actually amazing because it gave us the opportunity to learn what it meant to build things that people want. We did like all the mistakes that you can do as an early stage founder or as a first time founder. But it really taught us one thing, that we loved to work together. Iteration after iteration, you start to understand more of the things, and then it led us at some point to Chatfood.
Yeah. I guess they say building a startup is like a series of experiments. First question is, what were you looking for in those experiments? And then the second question is, what was the idea behind Chatfood initially?
Yeah, so I think it's a good point because initially, I think we just wanted to build something. Like we were just very enthusiastic about the fact to try to do something to eventually solve a problem. So one of the ideas that we worked on, for instance, in Dubai, I will fast forward that, but we started to build e-commerce for cars. One of the issues that we had when we came back to Dubai that, okay, we want to buy a car, but if you go on diesel, we don't know much about cars and it's shit. Like you don't know if the cars, okay, the price is good, but the quality is very hard to find. And if you go to the classic agency on Sheikh Zayed Road, okay, you might have a good car, but you pay a very high premium. So, and the premium you pay this because they have like big offices, they have a lot of salespeople. And so if you remove all those costs and you focus on the quality of the car, you can build a model where you can buy a good quality car with the security about the fact that the car is in good shape, a good price. So we started to build a company called Car Advisor that basically was doing this. Like we take the car on diesel, certify them, and then take a small premium on this and sell it with the guarantee that it was good.
Which is a great idea. I think there's many.
Yeah, since then there have been a lot
in
of
the US and now in the UK. There's some Kazoo, I think, another one in the UK that's come up. Clearly,
it was a good idea, but ultimately, I think we worked 6 months on this. We probably sold like 40, 50 cars. We were making 3,000 dirham on each car. So we made a bit of money from it. It was cool. But ultimately, at some point, we realized that we were not passionate about this problem. I don't care about cars personally, Vinny as well. And quite quickly, the passion to solve this didn't match with the investment that you want to. And then you need to think, okay, I'm going to dedicate the next like 5, maybe 10 years, 20 years of my life working on this problem. So is it the one problem that I want to solve? And will I be able to keep that passion and that energy to solve that problem along the way? So we stopped that idea not because it was not a relevant problem to solve, but we stopped it because we felt that it was not aligned with what we wanted. But it thought of trying to automate the customer service, chatbots. How do we are able to answer more of the customer questions? And step by step brought us closer to something that was really close to our heart is how do we empower small and medium businesses to access a good technology. So just coming back in time, Vinny and I, we are both from small business owner families. My father had a store where he was selling like stereo, TVs, sound systems in a small city, and Vinny's parents were the same in Brazil. And both of our parents got disrupted in their small business by big companies that would arrive, have access to a lot of resource, money, technology, and create a lot of value and impact their business in a negative way. And when we started to discuss with a lot of restaurants at the time, gathering into restaurants with Vinny to brainstorm on ideas, and we were always like trying to get feedback, we realized that they were lacking a lot of technology, and there was an opportunity for us to use our skills and give it to a category of business that usually don't have access to it. That's really like the core motivation of Chatfood, of what we are doing as Chatfood, is try to empower those guys to give them access to something that they usually don't have. And this is like super aligned, Vinny and I, and everybody who joined us after in that adventure. And we can confidently say that this mission is going to take us forward for the next 10, 20, forever. This is something that's every morning be like super excited to work on and to try to solve and to help those guys to build better business, to get rewarded for their work.
Yeah, I guess, you weren't afraid or concerned over the competition or the food aggregators. Food tech obviously has emerged as a competitive category, and you're coming into a space full of behemoths and you're a small startup. So how did you think about that?
Well, I think at the beginning, when you launch things, first you need to be a bit crazy in a way, because if you start to think about all the things that can go wrong, you never do anything. So
absolutely,
at some point I don't know if you need to not to worry too much about this, but it's also somehow a good sign. Like if there is a lot of people in this kind of, that it means that there is a huge market, there is need and so on. Then it comes back to the very basics. Like, is there an issue, and are you helping them to solve that issue? And just to focus on that, it's enough to get started and to start to see a bit of traction and so on. And then, like most of the very successful startups started like this, like super small. At the very beginning, like through our network, we had like chatted with a lot of restaurants who shared the same issue about like, I'm losing control of my business. Like I used to have people that before were ordering, like they were living in the same tower than me. I knew them by their name. They were calling me to order their pizza, and now they go on a third party and they order from that. And so not only I'm losing the connection with, I'm starting to pay 30% commission for something that before I was getting the full money of what I'm doing. So we could feel the pain of all those guys who spent years building their business, creating an audience, a loyal audience. And then suddenly that audience, because it's normal, it's for the convenience, was shifting away. And then they will start to not only lose the connections, but also like make less money. So of course, as a consumer, you want to have the convenience of ordering, but this convenience of ordering should not be restricted to just a few big technology companies, but it should be accessible for any type of business so that they can sell online. Like, selling online is here to stay. A lot of businesses, whether it's restaurant or other industries, cannot just sell from their physical store. For some of them, like keep and have their physical store, but they also need to be able to sell online, and they need to be able to make money and get rewarded for that. And there is a need here for a technology to help them to do that. And just by focusing on this simple issue and one restaurant at a time at the beginning, we could see that we were adding value, we were solving an issue. They would love what we were doing. It was enough to keep us going. It took time at the beginning, but you need to focus on your most important customers and really learn from them and not worry too much about like, okay, yes, there are guys who have like millions and millions of dollars in the bank, but as long as you are useful, let's see where it's going to take us.
Yeah, exactly. I love that because even as an investor, you can tend to focus on those negatives when you're looking at a company. And I think a lot of it is to do with the founders and their mission and the insights they have, which you got. The fact that they lose touch of the customer and also lose money at the same time. That problem is not apparent at the outside until you go and engage with customers. So the fact that you started getting these insights that allowed you to build conviction around your business is exciting, but also from an investor perspective is like, hopefully investors can see the opportunity and take much more of an optimistic outlook even in large competitive markets like this, even though still there are challenges, right? Of course. So far, that's been interesting. I guess why Dubai? Like, I get this problem exists. I know that you're remote as an organization for most part now, and you cover many markets. But what are your thoughts? Like, simply just because you were here, you started it, which is typically the case with some companies. But I'm just curious.
There is a part of this. We were here, easier to get it started here, but I think Dubai is interesting on that specific industry and what I call the quick commerce industry, which is like every good that you can order and get delivered within 1 hour to 2 hours. It's very interesting in that sense that's very advanced in terms of consumer behaviors comparing to many other places in the world. Before this whole boom or explosion of online ordering platforms, aggregators, and so on, in Dubai, you were already used to get things delivered. Like even 10 years back, you would call a restaurant and you would always have a driver available to deliver things. People in Dubai are probably much more advanced in terms of conveniently delivered to their place. And so this was a very interesting part because we could test a lot of things we know are going to become very relevant in other countries. The other aspect of Dubai is that it's a small market, and it's a very, very competitive one. So to be able to make a space there, you really need to be absolutely amazing on the execution and you need to be like super focused. Otherwise, it's almost impossible. So Dubai, in that sense, it's also a great pilot market, forces you to challenge you. And we can see now that when we present what we do in some other countries, this competitiveness of Dubai has forced us to build a tool that is really advanced comparing to what they can get in other parts of the world. And so this is a great asset of Dubai. You know that you cannot build a big company just out of Dubai, but it's so small and so competitive that it challenges you so much that then it's a great advantage for you when you go and want to expand in other markets. So in that perspective, it was amazing to start in Dubai.
Do you see those results happening now, even though it's still early days for you in terms of international, that the value of this sort of fast iteration, competitiveness, speed local market has when you go to, let's say, I don't know which markets, I mean, you may share which markets you're in, like Saudi and London and others. When you go there with your product offering, are they much excited about it or is it much easier to onboard customers?
In terms of user experience, we get very positive feedback. There are other competitors on those markets and they also do a great work. But it feels that the need that we have to make a user experience super simple and flawless and easy really resonates very well with those audience. So For instance, in UK, where Chatfood is growing very well at the moment, in Spain, where it's growing. We now have customers in 62 countries. So in some countries, like we have the biggest pizza company in Chile that is using us. Our product, like they started to get in touch with us 1 year ago. Our product was not really ready at the time for them to onboard, but it seemed that they loved so much what they saw that they kept pushing us like, when can we launch? When can we launch? When can we launch? And 1 year after, they were still behind us to ask us to use the tech. Finally, very recently, we did some change on the payment side so that they could really use it. And so these are some of the small signals that tell you, okay, not everything is perfect, of course, but maybe you do a few things well, and let's double down on this.
But like in your journey so far, like what would you describe as the most difficult moments that you've had to endure? And maybe, of course, we went through a pandemic, so everyone had that experience. Let's stick with that. And then maybe what excites you in the future, but we'll leave on the hardest moments.
There was different level of stressful moments, but to be honest, I think, and Vinny will share that as well, we have always been super grateful to do that. So we took a decision as we were first-time founders not to bootstrap, not to raise money. And I think this was a great decision because otherwise, if you have too much money too quickly, it's easy to forget about the basic, especially when you're a first-time founder. You need to go through that phase of, you need to sell and have people to pay you and learn what it is really like without influx of cash that helps you to scale too fast. But at some point, I think we were like probably 6 months or 7 months in the business. It became challenging that money goes super fast. So even if you have planned to use a bit of your savings and so on, there was really a moment where it was very stressful for like, are we going to be able, like basically we were at 2 weeks to not be able to continue.
That's bootstrapping. Then you raised
and then at the same time, like things changed quite quickly, and we got accepted to go to YC in the US, and then this attracted a bit of local investors' interests. And finally, we did raise like a very small like seed rounds to just be able to keep going. And then at some point, we met you.
Yeah.
And so this made things easier, but. I think this was
one of my favorite meetings, by the way.
We still joke about it, but when we were in YC with Vinny, we were like, I think we spent 2 days and we didn't spend like anything in San Francisco because we were just like, we don't have
any funds.
We don't have money anymore, right? If I had to remember like one moment where it was like particularly stressful, it was this.
Yeah, but that's good. I mean, that's part of the growing pains, you know.
Yeah.
One of the things that I look at, I think young companies tend to maybe not skip, but overlook is maybe culture and values. And I think more recently it's become a pressing issue with remote work. How do you build culture in remote teams? And I'd love to understand, obviously you're a growing company, so it's always evolving, but maybe how do you look at that? What has worked, what hasn't worked, maybe?
I think on our side, we are lucky because I think we are a true mission-driven company. I hope that you felt it when I was talking about it like previously, and we don't fake it. I think we really care a lot about being able to help those small and medium business, and we think that for our society in general, it's important that those guys can keep developing themselves and survive, and so we want to be able to help those guys to succeed, even if a lot of their business is going to move online. And I think this is something that's very, very strong in the company. So it's helped us a lot to filter also the people we brought in. And we care a lot about the people who join us, are very sensitive and care about that part as well. And I think we have done quite a good job at this, which makes the culture part after in the company much, much easier. So when you have this luck to have a purpose, to have a mission that's quite strong, it helps a lot on the culture side. But in a remote world, it has this set of challenge. And I think a lot of the things that are built naturally when you are all together in the same office, you see each other, you talk, you joke. And so this culture like just gets built naturally. You as a founder, it's important that you communicate and you talk about this like probably much more often than what you maybe would do in a normal environment. And I think it's also very important that maybe earlier than what you would do also in a normal organization, you bring in people to help build that and to really focus on that internal culture. It's probably something that I think we could have done earlier is to hire someone on the HR department that of course helped us with hiring, but whose main also a big focus is to like ensure that those values and that people in the company like are all aligned around that. So it's probably like one of the things that maybe like I think before Corona or before the remote side, people dedicated on this internal company culture, you would keep it for later. In a remote thing, I think you should bring this much forward in terms of hiring plan to have people to help
That's
you
a good point.
to do.
And even the role is morphed from an HR person now. It's more like communication, internal communication, alignment and stuff. So that's interesting. I think there's many ways to tackle it, but it sounds very interesting. So if I was to ask your team and say, okay, what's Ben like as a CEO? What do you think they'll say?
Vinny would say that I am a pain. It's a hard question to say. I think the same way that we try to empower businesses to sell online and to be rewarded for their work, I really try to empower as much as I can people within the organization to take risks, to take ownership. We have a few sentences that are important that we try to mention all the time. Is that better to apologize than to ask for permission. So really to give that feeling that like take risk, take ownerships, take initiatives. That's what's really matter. Of course, you will do things that are not good, but then it's okay. We should all learn. So I really try to encourage these kind of behaviors. And of course, in an early stage startup, it's absolutely super important to have people like this. If you just have people that just wait for people to tell them what to do, you don't go anywhere. So the second thing that I try to do as much as I can is to give direct feedback. I think it's one of the challenge as a manager and as you grow the team that sometimes like you see things that don't maybe like you would not do yourself as a founder because you care so much about the business and there is no ego into that, but it's important to give direct feedback. So I really try. I feel like something is not going in the right direction, not to wait, to be honest, transparent, and to give direct feedback and immediate ones. And hopefully it helps the whole company to do the same and to progress like this. This is the other sentence that we say that nothing is somebody else's problem. So when you see something that doesn't look good or doesn't make sense for you, raise your hand, talk about it, and we all improve this way.
That's amazing feedback. So if I look at your journey, and now you've obviously grown, you have product market fit, things are going in a hopefully a positive direction. And what is it like the initial learnings you developed quickly? Because like I said, there are probably a series of experiments that worked, some that didn't. There was a lot of learning in that process, right? So obviously maybe a challenging question to answer, but what do you think are like some of the key developed business model learnings, or its customer or product or culture that you're talking about now, which we already went through, but maybe share a bit more on.
I think we have done a good job at the beginning. Hopefully, we still do one is to be very close to our consumer and to learn from them and to really like be very into the business and very close to it. I think that this is very, very good at the beginning and not focus too much on other things. And so as you grow, there is two challenge. I think you learn when you are a first-time founder, and then eventually, if you do another company, you will probably do things a bit differently. But we didn't care so much about process at the very beginning. Like we wanted to get things done. We really had like this hacking mentality, and it's great. Like you have this quote, like you do things that don't scale, and that's great at the beginning. But you need to find the right balance. And at some point, especially when things start to pick up, these kind of things start to come back at you, right? So I think one of the advice I would say that, yes, you want to be super focused, you want to execute well, but it's very important from the very beginning to also implement the right process and to also care a lot about the process, especially when like us, you want to build a SaaS business and to try not to take too much delay on that. And I think for us, it has been like we are still catching up on some stuff on the internal process that we could probably have implemented at the very beginning, and it would have been much easier to grow with that. Then there is this whole debate, like, okay, if you don't have yet customers, like don't spend too much time working on process. But it's about the right balance, and also like, it's not good to wait too much before like organizing the company and
Yeah, exactly.
and making it like
it's a hard balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I guess then I know that even product vision has changed. So even like you started off, there's so many opportunities to go in to solve this problem, many ways to tackle it. I'm sure there are learnings there, and you're probably still making these choices today. So how do you think through that? Is it a framework that you think about, or is it more like you just try and get as much data points to support your vision of product?
Yeah, data is a very important part. And I think to come back to your ideal type of customers is also very important. One of the challenge, I think, as you grow is that you start to attract a lot of different type of customers that gives you feedback and so on. And it can be very easy to get diverted about like starting to build a lot of different things. And this technical depth also is something that's very important that you tend to overlook also at the beginning. The first time for now, okay, I just build this small feature for this guy because I really want him. And I think honestly, looking back, we didn't build almost anything custom for anyone, but it has been a lot of debates, internal conversations, and so I think like quite early on to really define very well your customer profile, focus on like this customer success, like making these guys super happy and really stay very focused on that is also very important. And believe that this segment that you need to really like tackle, like execute amazing, and then eventually things are going to grow out of that. That's one of the challenge, I guess, when you're an entrepreneur, that usually have a lot of different ideas. You see opportunities, business opportunities in many different places. And this focus part is absolutely key. So if you have a very clear vision of that, and you really spend a lot of time building your ideal customer profile, building the principles that goes with that, it makes your decisions, your product decisions, your company decisions much, much easier. So again, a piece of advice here is that do that very early on. Sometimes when I discuss with early stage startup, they feel a bit of shame to narrow down their market too much, to come back to like, they want to show you that, yeah, I can talk to this one, but it's also attracting for these ones and these ones.
I call it, they get attracted to shiny objects in their path, and then they go and they follow it and it's nothing really.
And talking back to Airbnb or companies like this who have been like amazingly successful. At the very beginning, they were targeting people who were going to festivals and were struggling to get a place to sleep for the festivals. And they just started to hammer that audience and kill it, and then they grew from that. So
exactly.
And the learnings, like when everybody was telling them like your idea is stupid, no, how can you imagine that people will sleep in other people's bed? They just had the insight from this audience, knowing that it was relevant for them, and they just kept the focus for that. This is a great source of inspiration to think that you can start from this narrow audience and build like a multi-billion-dollar company and still be relevant in your purpose.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I guess that brings me to a question on like inspirational leaders that you look at, or companies that you're like, wow, this company is doing things like really well, and I admire them and I want to learn from them. And who are the ones that you think? Obviously, Airbnb you just mentioned, but
Airbnb is one. Obviously, Shopify is another one. I think it's an amazing company that has grew like crazy, but still remain focused on their core mission and still like is adding a lot of value without. I think one of the challenges that probably when you grow is that you have more pressure from investors, from people who wants to, and somehow it can force you to take decisions that maybe are not aligned with why you did this in the first place. And when you look at all their histories, they have had so many moments in their life where that core mission, that core purpose really helped them to guide them and take decisions that were not short-term decisions driven by pressure from someone to make more money, but because they really wanted it to build something on the long term. So I know we already discussed it and we watched like interviews of Toby, the CEO and founder, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And look, as they have really empowered the business, we're selling on platform like Amazon to sell direct. For us, it's an amazing inspiration to try to do something similar on the quick commerce.
Yeah, phenomenal founder, phenomenal story. Brings me to your point on investors. That's so true. I think people underestimate, at least first-time founders, how an investor can impact your life and your future, your long-term future. And I think, unfortunately, in the Middle East, still have very few supportive. I wouldn't say they all have the intentions to support, but very few that really understand that this is a long-term game and let's focus on what the long-term value is versus short-term transactional stuff. So, I think about that a lot, and I ask founders early on, like, what do you look for? At least initially you were new. Now you've obviously have many people in your cap table. But I guess what are your learnings in that process? And when you look ahead, like, how do you look at your investors' value add? And maybe you said earlier, this is a long set of questions, but you said earlier that every round is there's new challenges that emerge. So maybe we'll leave that to the tail end, but what's the new challenges for you going forward? But maybe start with, what do you look for investors?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience there, but what I could feel is that there is not yet that culture of long term. And you can understand as well, like there is this culture of building things here and try to exit within a set amount of years, being bought by eventually someone who has done something similar in another bigger country and then wants to enter this country and buy you. But there is not that culture of like, let's start from here and eventually expand in other places. So I think that was something that we were really looking for, that people that would agree with us on that view, that we still don't know until where we can go, but we want to give it a try. We are not there just to do that. We are not looking for a quick exit, but we are looking to try to build something for the long term. After, you never know what the future is going to give us, but that's the core mission. So we wanted to find people that were aligned on this.
Aligned and open for learning and change.
Yes, exactly. And the second thing is that I think there's a lot of focus on growth. Expand fast, grow fast. Like, what are your growth figures? And of course, growth is very important, but it's important at the right stage. And I think when you are like pre-product market fit or pre-go-to market fit, the focus should be less on growth and on customer success and what your existing most valuable customers like. What is the value that they get of it, and how do you really learn from that? It's probably something that I don't know. I don't have experience with investors in more mature countries, but I think that it's something that is maybe more accepted. Is there are phases for everyone, and if you go into like an ultra growth phase too early, you are going to crash because you are not ready for that. And this takes time, and for some companies it can take just a few weeks or a few months, and for others it takes a bit more time. You need to have this maturity to understand the stages and challenge for the right things. And I think this is something that is getting more clear for a lot of people in the region, and maybe it was slightly different a few years back.
Do you see a power dynamic here? Like, what I learned in my time as an investor is that there's unfortunately a power dynamic that sometimes happens with first-time founders and the investor, where we have the money, you kind of have to listen to us, and versus like, hey man, we are real partners. We want to be with you in your journey, however long it takes, which I think is prevalent in more mature ecosystems, where the founder now has a lot more say in that relationship, and they're obviously more seasoned as well. So just thoughts on that. I know that this doesn't reflect your existing investors maybe, but it's just maybe shed light for future founders who may be listening.
Yeah, it's possible. And I mean, I don't know where it comes from. Like, it's, you have a whole chain of different values. So you can also understand that maybe on their side, they want to also show their value quickly and they need to show return quickly and so on. So it's a whole ecosystem that is at play there. But I think like each value of the chain is now understanding that maybe it takes more time, and you like understanding also all the stages where startup needs to go through. So I would say it's really going on the right direction. And I think that also with a lot of like many more success stories that has happened in the region, like people like are maybe a bit less stressed about like it needs to work. Like, okay, now we have some examples that show that it worked, and so let's believe that into that, and let's give it the time for it to grow and to develop. So yeah, I mean like it's a region that incredible talents. All those success also have attracted a lot of talents from anywhere in the world. These remote things also open a lot of opportunities for a company like us to go and attract talent from different parts of the world. So there is no reason why this ecosystem that is being big right now doesn't give even better results.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, maybe we go a bit more on the mental side. Can we talk about mental health a little bit? Because I feel like that's a subject that has become quite important given the pandemic. And, for me at least, I've been on my own journey of, let's say, mental health over the years. But, I think maybe start off, if you don't mind sharing, like, do you think you have any limiting beliefs that you think about yourself? Like anything that stops you from fulfilling your true potential, thoughts like that you can share? Maybe I'll start with me. For me, for example, I used to think that I wasn't good enough to be a good investor, and all these thoughts that would come into my mind as I practice investing, right? So there's all those negative thoughts that come through, and I think founders do face it, but they're probably alone in that journey. So I'm just curious if you want to share.
I think it also comes back to why you do these kind of things. I also want to prove that I can do that. I wanted to prove maybe to myself, of course. It always starts from like some mental barriers that you have and maybe like frustration that you have internally. I think at some point, as you go into this, you just realize that maybe the people that you were looking up like crazy, they also have their own struggle and so on. And so you start to come at peace to be like, and I think it's very important that a lot of defaults I also have obviously maybe some qualities. Let's just try to be true to yourself. And I think this entrepreneurship adventure is very humbling in that sense that everybody does mistakes, everybody fucks up. Like it's impossible to be perfect everywhere. So just like to accept that and to be like, okay, let's just be true with myself. And again, like it's come back to the values and to the belief. Let's just like take those decisions based on what I believe, not what I think maybe like people will like, but makes things so much easier. And then I don't know what will be the barriers. There will be probably a lot of barriers along the way. But once you have made that decision, okay, I'm just going to do things as I believe align with my values, and let's see where it brings me. It makes things a lot easier, and maybe there will be a lot of barriers.
When did you know what your values were? I think that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like I feel like entrepreneurship is that journey of uncovering what they are, right? So when do you think you figured out, okay, these are my values? I know who I am right now. Because in the beginning, you're, at least in the investor world, you start off with something called imposter syndrome. Like, oh, okay, do I know how to add value to these companies? Am I doing the right thing? And you start questioning yourself. In that process, you start understanding who you are, right? I feel like it's the same thing with building a company. So when did you figure out your values? Like, or even though it continues to evolve, when did you really have conviction around it?
I don't know if there is one moment where you are like, those are my values, but it's only when it comes, like when you come to moments of adversity and like then you confront yourself with that, and then you really realize this is what I feel comfortable with.
So it's a great answer. Yeah. So basically any moments of adversity are moments where you can understand yourself better. And through entrepreneurship, you have faced many moments. And so you've had many of those moments, which allows you to have a deeper understanding. Perfect answer, actually. Really, very well said. Do you ever consider like, a coach or like, like, do you ever think about that, or are you just too much ingrained?
No. It's something that's as you grow into the different phases, every time is a new territory that you need to discover. So to have coach, mentors, it's absolutely important. Yeah, like on that front, I think you have like your own network, and we are lucky enough to have like some individual investors that have been through the journey before, so that's really helpful on that front. It's also something that is interesting because looking back at the very beginning, like when you get coaching lessons, you sometimes like hear and listen to the things, but you don't really understand them. So at the moment you think, yeah, okay, I get it, but it's only when you really like again face the thing that then you start to realize what it meant really. So another advice I would have is that even like at the very beginning, like to listen, to watch a lot of stories of other founders, to read books. Maybe right now, like you will not really get it, but at some points, all this knowledge will come back and will be very useful when you will be in that situation. So especially for founders, like coaching and keep like trying to build your knowledge from other people who have been through that. It's like a massive part of it. And as you grow, like at the very beginning, you are very much into the business as a founder, and then as you grow, you need to be able to step up a bit and be on the business and not in the business, which is a challenge, which is still a challenge for us. And so to have this coaching time and taking this time is very, very important also to move from these different stages.
Okay, yeah. So I guess, is there anything you would have done differently now looking back? You mentioned a couple of things that you did differently, like internal process, maybe hiring an HR manager earlier on. Anything else you want to add to that? Or do you think that those are like some of the key learnings that you've had so far?
I don't know if I would like, the thing is that it's a learning phase. So as a first time founder, I think it's very important to go through those phases to build yourself. But now looking back, definitely on the hiring side, I think we probably had enough traction at some points, especially when we were bootstrapping, that maybe raise a bit of money earlier and go faster on the hiring side to build a strong team like earlier on. And I think probably like also like to build like a bigger team and surround yourself with even more like very talented people who are better than you in many aspects.
Yeah,
is something that's very important. And again, like you need to find the right balance because you don't want to do that too early. But in our case, I think we could have done that earlier than what we did.
Okay. Are there any books that you've read that you would recommend to founders to check out?
There is a classics one like 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel. That's I also consume a lot of YouTube videos, so podcasts. One that I listen to a lot at the moment for any SaaS founders. It's called SaaS Academy. American guy who's built like an amazing resource of content.
I think Jason Lemkin, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really cool. Yeah, YouTube videos are like I don't know, like I think it links to one of the things that's also important. That's how do you discipline yourself as a founder, and how do you find this moment of time where you can learn these kind of things and so on, because it's very easy to be drawn into the day-to-day like emergency stuff. So one of the things that I also learn a lot is to create these routines and this discipline. And in my side, like to the morning to exercise is something that's very important, and then it's a great moment also to listen to things, and so it feeds me a lot. So I think one of the things also as a founder is try to quickly find this routine, this morning or evening, whatever fits you, or you do things that makes you like energized, feel good, and also feed your mind and your reflection. You don't want to be just day-to-day business and so on. And this is something that's very important. I think we don't talk enough about that aspect of like we talk about it today, but the mental side, and to also like help you to organize yourself on the personal level. It's absolutely
necessary. Yeah, making space. I don't do that very well. That's a good learning for me. How do you stay motivated now? Is it like, obviously you're still early in the game, so there's a lot to do. Now you have kids, of course. That's a big change. That's a whole different podcast on itself.
It helps on the discipline side, yeah.
It helps on the discipline side, but also on the motivation, I imagine. Like they're there every day and you are doing this for family, but also for purpose and mission. So how do you stay motivated, and how do you think about purpose? So let's maybe link the two together.
Mostly it's, the purpose part and the motivation part is easy because we believe in what we do. And every time you have a small doubt, this is where you need to stay connected to your best customers, because it's always good to go back to those basics and have chat with the people who use your service or your software. And this gives you an amazing boost of motivation when you hear like positive. You don't always hear positive things, but it's a roller coaster, right? So you just need to accept the fact that there will be ups and downs. And then when you are done, of course, your co-founder and people that are very close to you are very important, but there is also something that's just like, okay, go back at some point. And this belief about like, it's just a phase, stay focused, it's immensely helpful. So the motivation is really not an issue. The convictions and so on, like then you go back to the basics, just know that it's a phase, and then goes back up. And
everything passes. If everything passes and comes and goes, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Look, Ben, this is one of my favorite conversations. I won't forget the day we first met, but also like the journey you're on and the way you're growing as a leader. You and Vinny. I spent time with Vinny on a hike recently. He's a lovely guy, such an amazing guy. So I wish you guys all the best, man. And maybe in a few years' time, we'll have another session.
I'm here. Thank you so much.
All right, perfect. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you were able to take away some valuable insights on this episode. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast listening app, and please don't forget to leave us a review and share it with your friends. The Middle East has a new story to tell, and this is From MENA to the World.